KP.
KPC.
News.
Information. Culture. KPCC.
California Sensibility.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Lehrer.
And I'm Amy Choi, and we are the Mashup Americans.
It's Olympics week, y'all. Are you guys ready to judge all the uniforms / costumes and weep during the opening ceremony? Because I am.
I'm going to have like 8 boxes of tissues. It's just so moving. I love it.
Everyone together under the flags, and then there's going to be the first refugees team under the Olympic flag.
Kosovo's going to be in it. South Sudan, which wasn't a country 5 years ago.
It's unbelievable.
It's going to be amazing. You know, I will say, though, as much as I love the Olympics, it always brings out like one of those tensions in me and in being a mashup. And I think it seems silly, but it's also one of the most persistent. It's like when it comes to sports, who do you root for? Like, who do you cheer for in an event like the Olympics or the World Cup?
I think we all kind of feel that way. It seems really silly, but actually it's about allegiances and roots and maybe sometimes even our relationships with our parents or our grandparents and their relationships to their places of origin. I find for myself, I'm almost always cheering for Team USA in big world events. On the other hand, you know, if El Salvador is playing or Brazil is playing, they have my heart. Like, I will go all in for them.
Totally. I'm nodding vigorously as it's happening. Nobody can see that, but that's what's happening.
No, they can't.
It's pretty crazy to think about how like fandom can shape your life. Again, even when you're not really a true sports fan. Like, do I care about soccer? Not really. But in 2002, when Korea was hosting the World Cup and they were doing historically amazing, did I stay up all night, go to 4 a.m. games in Koreatown wearing, you know, weird Korea gear, and then go to my job drunk at 8:30 in the morning? Yes, I did.
Yes, you did. Very strong choice there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very
I
strong.
feel right about what I did when I was 22. But then again, you know, like I've also been a Cubs fan. I grew up as a Bulls fan, and then I moved to New York and became a Nets and a Giants fan. I have an affection for all of them because they're part of who I am.
Right. And some people are much more like, I'm a Cubs fan for life because my dad was and my grandfather was, right? But there's this idea of kind of how your mashiness affects this, right? That you move around and maybe you go to college or for different jobs and your fandom becomes a kind of a marker of your identity in a way. And those places and those sports teams get all mashed together and create this kaleidoscope of the different places and people that are really significant in your life.
Yeah, it's actually like a really rich and interesting way to kind of dive into who we are. So today, we're going to hear from 2 people. Our dear friend Matt Ufford, an incredibly insightful sports writer and host with SB Nation, to talk about what it means to be a fan and how who you root for becomes part of who you are. And we are also going to hear from Phillip Chew, an Olympic athlete and the star of our newest obsession, the all-Asian American badminton team.
The all-Asian American badminton team. Whoa.
It has a nice ring to it.
It does. Real Olympian. So we do love being the best at things. We're like both pretty type A ladies. But we're also honest about not being the best in the world at anything. And so for us both, the idea of Olympians, like we're just fantastic, amazing, top-tier athletes, being the best at something that they do and being one of a handful of people in the whole universe who does it is it's just so awe-inspiring. Also, Phillip Chew has the best mashup story. His grandfather was a Thai Chinese badminton star, and he met his wife, Philip's grandmother, playing doubles badminton in Thailand. Then they moved to the U.S., and then they started a badminton training facility, a Thai restaurant, and another business all in one place. It's just such a great story.
It is very American dream badminton version.
Obviously.
It's so good.
Natural sentence.
Yeah. So here's Phillip Chew, one of the great non-white hopes of American badminton. He's 22. He's going to the Olympics for Team USA, and we had him in the studio to share his story.
My grandfather had me playing since I was 1 year and 9 months. My grandfather took the real racket size and cut it down so the shaft was really short, so it's a smaller racket. so it's easier for a young kid to hold and swing. And then he used a fishing pole, and instead of hooking bait, he hooked a birdie so that I can swing at the birdie on the fishing pole.
So you were pretty coordinated, though, that means.
Yeah, it must have come in the family because actually my parents met from playing badminton too at local high school, so must have got it from everyone in my family. My grandparents played together when they were back then. My grandma only played with my grandfather. They played some mixed doubles, but my grandfather was close to making the national team in Thailand back when he was there. But unfortunately, back then, Thailand was one of the strongest badminton countries, and so he would probably be second tier or one of the first ones that didn't make it. And then they eventually moved to Anaheim.
Did you start competing super young as well?
I played my first junior nationals at the age of 5 in like under 10 categories. I was playing like 8 and 9-year-olds, and I was able to win the singles and doubles. It's kind of funny because I played mixed that year with Jamie, who's my mixed doubles partner, who we qualified for Olympics, and that was the only tournament we ever played until 4 years ago when we decided to partner together and try and qualify.
So you and Jamie are
Amazing.
really a match made in heaven for this. That's pretty awesome.
All 7 of us are from Southern California. 3 of us are currently training at my club because me and my 2 partners that qualified. 2 other Olympians used to train at our facility for like 10 years, so they're actually sort of from us too. My cousins want to play and they're young, so they can be part of the next generation, and hopefully they'd be able to qualify as well, along with my brother.
Thank you so much, Phillip.
All right, thank you.
Go, Phillip! We are Team USA Badminton all the way.
All the way.
A sentence we never thought we would say, but we 100% mean it. If we can find it on TV, we are so in. So with that, let's talk to our friend Matt Ufford from SB Nation about why fans cheer the way they do and learn more about how sports create community and relationships, because it's another opening ceremony this weekend, and we know you all are about to have some serious red, white, and blue coursing through your veins.
Hi, I'm Matt Ufford. I work for a company called SB Nation, which is part of the Vox Media umbrella, and I talk about sports for a living.
That's pretty fun.
You forgot the most important part of your resume, which is that you're one of my best friends.
Oh, yes, our children play together.
It's true. Our
children play together.
And maybe they'll be athletes together. We'll see.
Yeah.
Given that your daughter just learned how to walk, it might be a while before we find out.
Yeah.
Especially since she's like 6 now.
Right?
No.
So can you tell us about your cheering allegiances? Like, where did you grow up and who do you cheer for?
So I'm a bit of a complicated case because I grew up with a father in the Air Force. He was a pilot and was flying all over the world. And so we moved about every 3 years in the Air Force. And so I was born in Washington State between Tacoma and Olympia. We moved when I was 2 years old, but my dad is from the Pacific Northwest. And so I grew up without a real sense of home, like growing up in Oklahoma, Washington, D.C., New Jersey, Southern Illinois. We just moved all the time, and so I always thought of Washington State as home. And so my dad was a Mariners fan, Seattle Mariners, so I grew up a Mariners fan. He was a Seahawks fan. I grew up a Seahawks fan. And it was also a way for me to like feel connected to a place because I never really was growing up. So I'm a Seattle sports fan because of that. And my parents now, my dad's retired from the Air Force, now works for the state of Washington, and they're back in Washington, so it's once again home to me.
But you just named so many places, and then you said, of course, I'm a Seattle fan. How did that happen?
When you grow up as a kid who moves every couple of years, I don't know how you guys, if you were in one place, but when you move every 3 years, it's hard to feel a sense of home.
Right.
And so for me, I grew up like knowing that I was born in Washington, and I knew that I loved the tall trees and the mountains, and I loved Seattle and Tacoma and Olympia without ever having a great sense of what it was, except for rooting for the sports teams with my dad. So it's kind of multi-pronged. It gave me a sense of home when I didn't have one, and it also gave me a close connection to my father, which, for a lot of men, I think is why and how they end up in sports is it's like because without getting too strictly down, gender politics. I think that it's more likely that men and fathers are more taciturn, and raising your kids to be sports fans is a way to connect with them without having to share real feelings.
Well, totally. I mean, I think we think about that a lot. Like, how does fandom stretch across generations? That tie can be as important as anything else. Being able to talk about the Mariners is so important to your relationship.
Yeah, and it's still like, I'm going to be 40 in a couple of years. My dad is in his 60s, and we still talk about the Mariners, the Sounders, the Seahawks, and it's like when I call home, I talk to both my mom and my dad. My mom will dominate the conversation, and if it's just my dad, I get to have like just a 10, 15-minute talk about sports with him, and it's great.
Right.
And like it's not like, oh, this is the only thing we have to talk about, but it's something that we talk about with ease. We're two more taciturn people by nature, so it's a way to connect with my dad.
Right.
So in a way, your job is like one long homage to your relationship with your father.
Oh man, that's dressing it up real nice. Because
He must be pretty proud, though.
So he's basically in therapy every time when he goes to work, is what you're saying.
My day-to-day life is more like working in the gutters of the internet to talk about sports. But yeah, sure. Connect with my father, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I totally hear you on that sense of how Seattle sports could root you to a place and give you a sense of home. Did you pick up any other teams? Like, there were no tall trees and mountains in Southern Illinois.
No.
No.
It's weird. When I lived in Southern Illinois, everybody was like a St. Louis Cardinals fan, and the Mariners are in the American League. The Cardinals are in the National League. They have a bunch of success, but for many reasons, I didn't like Southern Illinois. I didn't really feel a connection to the people or the place, and I rejected the Cardinals and all the fans outright. There's also an interesting theory from the Men in Blazers, Michael Davies and Roger Bennett, who say that you're either a red or a blue. You either cheer for teams that are like red or blue. All of my teams are blue/green, and like those are my favorite colors. And I don't know
colors of their teams.
Yeah, and I don't know, if my favorite colors are blue and green because that's how I grew up and identified it to a place, or if I liked the teams first and therefore my favorite colors became that. I have no idea.
That's so interesting.
That also sounds crazy.
Amy has gotten to the very heart of sports fandom, which is, that's crazy. Because sports fans make no sense whatsoever. And the minute that you accept that, like, how sports fans process what they watch, it's disconnected from your intellect. It's all emotional.
This makes a lot of sense because, like, I can get into any kind of championship series, sure, because I'm a human.
Right.
And, like, my heart starts pounding, and I'm like, who's going what? Oh, my God. But in the end, I'm like, oh, but they got so close. They tried really hard. They should feel really good about themselves. They won. That's not how it works.
Well, Rebecca
it's like
has
you win or you lose.
two theories of fandom, though, of cheering. One is that if somebody has a nice face, like LeBron.
I don't even mean, like, handsome. I just mean, like, I like that person's face. I bet they have a nice mother.
Yes.
Like a good person.
Yeah.
And then the second theory of fandom and cheering is the colonized versus the colonizer.
Oh, wow.
This metaphor can be stretched many ways. But if you think about, like, we're talking about the Olympics, like, are you going to root for Portugal or are you going to root for Brazil?
But this is hard being from a big, like, I'm from LA and big city. And I will always cheer for an LA team. I mean, in the cases that I'm cheering for anything, I will cheer for an LA team and get into it. But Cleveland hadn't won any. The Cavaliers had basically never won, right? Or in a million years. And so when they're playing, it's just like totally emotional because I like an underdog story.
Yeah, no, I think I've actually done, I've written about the United States men's national team in soccer before the World Cup. And one of the reasons that makes them so likable, in my opinion, going into the World Cup is it's one of the rare instances where the American team is an underdog. And it gives people a chance to root for the United States as an underdog. It's something that we always want to identify with, but when we go into the Olympics, it's very rarely the case. Right.
And what's interesting also about, like, the Olympics or other global sports, except for the World Cup, is that the U.S. is the way we see the the sports that we're shown, or like what we actually see on NBC in the States. You would think there are only the sports that Americans are champions of, right?
NBC gives us a very tightly packaged version of the Olympics.
But as a person who likes the human interest stories, I'm very pleased with how they explore that.
That's going to check your boxes then.
Yes, I'm like, oh, look at his mom. She seems lovely. And then I cry. And now a word from our sponsors.
When hybrid cars were first introduced, Californians were the earliest adopters of this new technology. Now, once again, we have the opportunity to lead the charge in the new era of green innovation with the Toyota Mirai. Innovative, efficient, and reliable, Mirai embodies Toyota's vision of the future and meets the world-class standards we've come to expect from Toyota. Mirai's fuel cell technology combines oxygen from the atmosphere with hydrogen from its fuel tank to produce its own energy, with water as its only byproduct. Californians have always been ahead of the curve when it comes to new eco-friendly invention, and with Mirai now available in California, we again have the chance to be leaders in the next evolution of green automotive technology. Enjoy the future of driving today. For more information, visit toyota.com/MIRAI.
Well, so as non-sports fans here at Mashup HQ, we're very much attached to individual people and their stories. We are all about the Oprahization of the Olympics. But, so as somebody who actually understands sports, do you follow athletes? Are there specific teams that you root for in the Olympics? Like, who do you cheer for in the Olympics?
I'm pretty tried and true patriot, growing up in a military family, having served in the military myself.
Matt's a Marine.
So, yeah, I'm basically rooting for American athletes. But I think that as I've worked more in sports media and as I've gotten used to the NBC packaging, I'm more open. I'm more open to cheering for athletes from other countries.
Part of it too is the struggle. I don't know if that's the right, but like thinking about how many resources American athletes have relative to, say, the first South Sudanese athlete to be in the Olympics, right?
Right, like she just got a country 5 years ago.
I mean,
and now she's in the Olympics. Like, come on.
So my family's from El Salvador, and my uncle was just telling me about, you might know this, but like the losingest World Cup game ever, I think, was like El Salvador and maybe Hungary. And it was like 11-1. And this was during
It's hard to get 11 goals in soccer.
Yeah, and there was this Salvadoran team who, it was during the Civil War in El Salvador. I mean, they were going from war to go play in this. They barely had shirts on their back, and they're going to play, and they were just so excited about being there that they just lost their shit. They have in history like a place in history as the most losing team, but that story of them coming from the place they were in that moment to escape that and to get to be part of this kind of global excitement and competing for something that wasn't for like their lives is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at what the U.S. Olympic team has set up for them in Colorado Springs. I interviewed a bunch of Olympians this spring, and we asked them about like what's your standard day, and they were able to, like, every single one was like, well, I get up at 6 a.m., have a little bit of oatmeal. We have our first training package. I come back. I have, a second breakfast, take a little nap. Then it's weights, and then another meal, and then it's our second workout of the day. And then I come back, take another nap. And it's basically just rest, fuel, and training. Right. And it's very regimented. And for the guy who's going to be the whitewater kayaker in the Olympics, they have that set up for him. And he lives in Colorado Springs, and that's what he does every single day. And you look at just American Olympians go through their own set of sacrifices, giving their entire lives over to this. But if you get to that place, you also have a lot more resources than if you're the Sudanese athlete.
Why do you think we get so excited about these personal stories or being able to like get in with people? What have you learned in kind of your investigations of fandom? Why do we get so excited about that?
I think that there's a certain level of I don't want to say hero worship, but this dream that it could have been us if we we close our eyes and we imagine ourselves as that Olympian, as a famous athlete. I think that's part of the reason that NBC tries to give you that teary package so that you know more about them, you can imagine their life story, feel closer to them, and the more that you learn about them, there's so much of sports where it's everybody is kind of like fulfilling their dreams by watching the athletes themselves. So I grew up swimming every single summer, and I was never that good, but I naturally gravitate towards the swimming events in the Olympics just because that's what I have familiarity with. And it's not like I could see myself as being Michael Phelps, but I think part of it is knowing how much better and what they're able to do than that. And I think that it's all about like, wow, in order to do what they're doing takes so much. And that's what I really think it is. It's just like, wow, either I could do that if you're not really informed, like, oh man, I'm closing my eyes and dreaming I'm that person. Or if you're a little bit more informed of the situation, it's like, I know what they've done, and that makes it more impressive.
It's a parallel or a corollary to the American dream, right? You can do it. And I mean, both anybody can do it, and also only extraordinary people can make these things happen.
With hard work and dedication and elbow grease, you can make it to the Olympics.
Right.
But then the reality is that, like, also you need some kick-ass jeans.
I mean, or I couldn't even hang from the bar in like the physical fitness test.
Yeah,
Were you
right.
not
Middle
like
school.
a presidential athlete? What was that in like the second grade?
I
You had
can't.
to do like 100 push-ups, or it doesn't matter.
No.
Presidential fitness test.
Presidential fitness. It's like being the Olympics to me is like the ultimate aspiration.
Yeah.
Right, on the global stage. And there's something, and I don't care how cynical everybody
Yeah.
gets. Like, I don't, and Matt, I know that you've actually done some reporting on this, but like, I don't care that there's Zika. I don't care that Brazil is super corrupt. Like, of course I care on different levels
Sure.
and in separate contexts. But in this case, to me, it's like, wow, that kid, and in a lot of cases, they really are just kids.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Has worked literally their entire life to be in this one spot. Like, let's honor that. There's something really incredible about that.
Totally.
That's one of the things that I totally agree with you, Amy. I find so amazing. But at the same time, I was talking about the poisoned water of Rio, and that the water for the sailing events and for the rowing events is basically, if you do it, you've got a very good chance of getting sick from the viruses in the water. But it's like, what can rowers do? Like, this is the Olympics is literally like their only chance to have any sort of visibility on a national or international stage. Were you going to boycott the Olympics? It's like, well, that's what you've dedicated your entire life to.
Right.
And so you're just going to have to do that. I'm the same way with you, that I think that the ideal of the Olympics stands for something more than whatever cluster F is going on in Rio. But at the same time, it's like, oh man, that's a tragedy, really, that these people who have given over their lives to this are going to be put at risk.
And also that all the people there who live there all the time have been like displaced, or they're never getting good water.
Right.
I mean, all of this stuff that, like, why do some things get prioritized over others? Like, why is this? It's just the same, right, as the World Cup. Like, why is this crazy infrastructure that costs billions of dollars somehow there's money for that, and yet there's not money to give people good lives every day?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a bummer.
Yeah,
It's a bummer.
Next episode, it's ice cream eating season, and we have our favorite ice cream makers on our show. Natasha and Freya of Cool House Ice Cream and Ludlow's Cocktails are talking with us about starting businesses, being married, and how you choose your sperm donor when you're lesbian mashups. Subscribe at itunes.com/mashup and get it first.
Chorando se foi quem dia só me fez chorar. Chorando se foi quem dia só me fez chorar.
So who are some teams globally that people universally root for?
That I don't think there's any universal.
I'm rooting for
good-
South
good
Sudan.
guys.
Anybody who is not is an asshole. I'm just putting that out.
Jamaica in Cool Runnings.
Yeah, I think that like anything that's an obvious underdog. You look at there's a famous story of like Eddie the Eagle in the Olympics of 1988, 1980. I no longer know, but the ski jumper who was like terrible at ski jumping. Like anybody who's just like really happy to be there is that like anyone who's not a threat to win it all and does it with a smile on their face, like they're just happy to be there. Those are the athletes that everybody ends up liking because
Yeah.
they're not going to get in the way of your country's medal count.
Yeah.
I think that everybody, when it comes to the opening ceremonies, people will like the the teams that are happiest to be there. They're like the teams that have like the coolest uniforms, and like Greece is always likable because they had the first Olympics and they always lead the procession.
Wait, Matt, I'm having a flashback to being in your apartment like 4 years ago and watching there was some sort of drinking game happening during the opening ceremony.
That's definitely something I've done.
Yes.
Yeah. 2012 was in London, and for SB Nation, I came up with like a drinking game that was basically like, anytime they go super British on you, you're going to take a drink. And it was like the Britishest thing ever.
Well, like when like Mary Poppins came from the sky or something.
Yeah.
And like James
exactly.
Bond and the Queen.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So,
Oh wait, and then wasn't there a whole thing about universal health care?
yes,
There was the
universal
nurse. There was
healthcare.
nurses?
There was like a whole Tolkien thing. Like it could not have been much more British.
God, I love that. If we should be so lucky that the Brazil games are very Brazilian because
I like
how great
samba and naked people
and,
the whole time.
and beautiful people with great
Okay with
music.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm okay with that.
I have a very important question, which is that we are well-established crybabies over here.
Yeah.
Clearly crying a lot about Margaret Ramat Hassan, the South Sudanese runner that I'm now obsessed with.
Totally.
Does the Olympics make you cry? I'll cry to Nike ad. So we're there.
It's interesting to see how this will change. So I've become a parent in the last just 2 years. It'll be 2 years in October. And I now cry at like commercials on the regular. Like
Welcome.
This weekend I was at the aquarium and I was watching just a very standard sea lion show with my my daughter who's like a year and 9 months, and just like something like watching her face as like a sea lion show is like the most rote thing. Like, and like, here's the part where they talk about like, don't throw bottles away, recycle them because they go in the ocean. If you've seen one, you have seen them all. But like the fact that I get to watch my daughter see it for the first time, and like I'm starting to choke up just talking about it. And like, so now I'm like the most like prone to crying person ever. So I'm curious to see how the Olympics will affect me. Parenthood just rewires you.
The thing is that we joke that we're not super fans, but any sports movie, like you cannot stop me. Remember the Titans, Hoosiers, Miracle,
Breaking Away.
I mean,
the
any
best.
single one.
And it's all basically the same movie. Like every
Exactly
sports
the
movie
same.
has the exact same arc, but it's a really effective arc, and that's
the
why.
most. Well, I cry
people keep
when
making
like there's when the marathon runs by. I can't even believe people use their time to do a marathon. Like, if you really ask me. But I actually, in that moment, I'm like, we're all together. I'm like, there's so many people here, and we're experiencing this together collectively, and these people work so hard, and I'm just suddenly weeping. You know, I'm broken, or my heart is really big. I can't tell.
Your heart is really big. Your heart is really big. And Matt, I'm very excited to hear that your adorable baby girl, who I love with all my heart, has broken open your heart too.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Well, thank you, Matt Ufford from SB Nation. It was so fun having you on and helping us understand that it's not that we're crazy for not understanding fandom, but that fans are actually just crazy.
Oh, absolutely. That's the one lesson to be given.
And thank you for being part of our affirmative action program.
Yeah.
You are the third white man we've had on our show.
Anytime you've had too much diversity, I'm the white guy for you.
Mamãe vai fazer, papai vai fazer, mamãe vai fazer, só falta você.
That was our friend Matt Ufford of SB Nation. You can find him on Twitter and all the other socials at Matt Ufford.
This reminds me, this whole conversation, that I need to rewatch one of my favorite underdog sports movies, which is also one of my favorite genres of movie, the movie Miracle with Kurt Russell.
Hello. What is Miracle with Kurt Russell?
It is about the 1980 Olympics ice hockey championship between the U.S. and the Soviet Union, but it's actually about the Cold War, and the U.S. is the underdog, and I'm going to just make a huge spoiler here, except these are the facts that you should know from history, is that the U.S. won, and it is a great movie.
Am I going to cry?
Yeah, of course you're going to cry. There's so much like swelling music and sweaty, handsome men and good stories.
Well, this is definitely my kind of movie. I'm very excited to see what kind of beautiful miracle story comes out of this Olympics. I mean, sincerely, seeing the athletes, seeing how hard they work, seeing how hard their families have worked to get them there, it moves me. And I can't believe that we've actually also had an Olympian on our show. I feel like a winner.
We are winners by proxy. We are
Right.
Olympians. So we're also the Mashup Americans. And I am Rebecca Lehrer.
And I'm Amy Choi. Our producer today was Jocelyn Gonzalez. Our show is produced by American Public Media and Southern California Public Radio, KPCC.
We're also supported in part by an award from the National Endowment for the Arts on the web at arts.gov. Bye.
Bye.
Mama,